What's up, everybody? Jason from Jason's Exotic Reptiles. If you're a new or aspiring breeder, this is for you because we're talking about the top 5 mistakes you're gonna make. If you're thinking about breeding reptiles, avoid these rookie mistakes. We're gonna go through the top 5 today, and I'm gonna give you a bonus tip at the end. Mistake number 1, relying on misinformation. I'm holding this specific animal here, and I'm going to cycle through different animals throughout the course of this video, but the misinformation that I'm referring to, the most common one that I see, is that you are buying animals with the hopes to get rich. And what people do is that they end up buying really expensive animals, like this Type 2 Ghost Inca. This is only one of a handful in the world. And if I sold you this, I could give you this whole story about how you're going to make so much money with this animal because your return on investment, you're going to have people who are just banging your doors down to buy them, and it's a $6,000 snake, and you need to make $6,000 snakes. And unfortunately, this is a common theme in ball pythons. It's not so much in boas and other species, but in ball pythons, it's running wild. That you have to essentially sell the dream is, you buy this $10,000 snake, dude, you're going to take this, you're going to breed it to a normal female, and you're going to be making just $10,000 babies, and everybody's going to want them because it's a no-brainer. You're going to make a lot of money with it. No, that's not the reality. There are 2 big factors contributing to it, and it is depreciation and supply and demand. So one is, if you buy a $10,000 animal now, in 2 to 3 years by the time you breed a ball python, or 3 to 4 years minimum by the time you breed a boa, these are probably going to be at least half the value, if not more. Depends on how many people produce it, but in ball pythons, everybody's trying to produce it as fast as possible, so your competition is high. And there's also a supply and demand in the market. Is if I produced 30 of these, I need to find 30 people willing to spend $6,000 to $7,000 on this animal. It's not possible. Now, if I did, maybe I can sell 1 or 2, but then I will be overproducing if I produce 30 of them, and I'm going to crash the price. And that's usually what happens, is people will overproduce these with the hope that they're going to sell 30 animals, and they sell 1 and they get really excited, and then they make more, and then they are sitting on 40 or 50 of these animals. The only way to sell them is to drop the price, which leads back to the depreciation, as they start just trying to get their initial investment back. That's assuming you're first. And if you're not first, you're going to be in that depreciating asset class where you are just watching your investment go down and you cannot get rid of it. It's not a place where you want to be. One thing you can do to try to avoid this misinformation is that if you are not good at deciphering what's real and what's false, is get yourself a trusted mentor. Now, this can be somebody local, or this can be someone through a Patreon page. I have plenty of people on my Patreon page who are just looking for this specific type of guidance. Get yourself somebody you trust, find them as a mentor, and work with them to understand how to build your projects. Now, I do want to emphasize before we go into number 2 that these are animals and they're not assets, but if you are in a business with reptiles, they are essentially an investment if you're spending a lot of money. The second rookie mistake is rushing the process. So these are living, breathing animals. You cannot rush the process. There's 2 main ways I see people do shortcuts to this. Is 1, they buy adults, or 2, they try to grow the animal too quickly. The problem with buying adults is that when I am buying an adult from somebody, I always have to ask myself, why? Why are they selling this adult? Is it because it's not relevant anymore? Is it because they're outgrown it? Is it because they don't like it? So you are buying something from somebody without knowing the history. Sometimes if it's from a breeder, it's because it's an animal that doesn't want to breed. So that's something to consider. Whenever you buy an adult, you are also buying the history of that animal. Every problem that animal has been through, if that animal has encountered diseases, then you are introducing that into your group. So the thing where I see most people going wrong is they will buy an adult, they will introduce it right into their breeding group after a very short, if no quarantine at all, and their whole collection gets sick and everything dies. So that rush of the process actually sets you right back to square one. Remember, this only takes 1 time to do it. You don't need to get caught 100 times. It only takes 1 time to ruin everything that you've tried to build. Part 2 of this is rushing the process. This is a smaller growing dwarf boa. Right here is a Jason's Exotic Reptiles T-positive blood that is probably Mayan and also hypo. Really pretty looking animal. Very happy with this. But they try to grow them too quickly because just what we talked about in rookie mistake number 1 is that they are trying to get from 0 to 100 really quickly. They need to be the first to the game because they have put a lot of money into an investment, and if they're not first, they're last. And there's a reality to that when you're dealing with the cutting edge stuff, is people are looking at this purely from an investment standpoint. They put the animal's health at risk, and it doesn't always work out great. This is a 2022 animal. She is 2 years old. She's been raised at the right rate, and I'm not rushing when I can breed her. When she's ready, she'll be ready, and I will make my animals with her. I don't need to rush it. I don't care if I'm further down the line and where I'm making it. Now, this is one really specific, unique animal that only I have, so I have the time, but I apply that same approach and that same philosophy to everything I have here. Rookie mistake number 3 is buying the hype. Now, this girl right here is a hypomotley. Normal hypomotley. She is het for albino, just call albino, but she's nothing special. A lot of people try to buy into whatever is the newest, latest, greatest thing, and they're constantly chasing. They're not doing it from a stance of passion. They're not doing it from a place of what they really love and enjoy. Now, I've had this girl for a while, but I still have hypomotleys I'm raising up. I want to show off a little bit bigger of an animal, but the beautiful thing about this girl is I have her because I enjoy her. I'm not trying to cut somebody over. I'm not trying to produce the world's first. I'm trying to get animals that I enjoy, and that's how I build my breeding group. Now, what happens is people newer to the hobby are going to start buying things that they think others want. And in 5 years, you're not going to be happy with it because you bought things that you were buying for somebody else and not yourself. I am always and only buying things that I like because trends fade and passion is what sustains the hobby. And even if you're doing this as a business, these are live animals and it has to come from a place of passion. If this is purely a business for you, it's much easier to do something else. And I think you should do something else because these are real live animals and this girl has a personality. And if I were to just buy the hype, then I would never have this girl here. I'd be probably selling her because she's not relevant to the latest and greatest. But I keep her because, one, she's a beautiful animal. I've had her for a while, and I bought her because I wanted her. And I realized that these are animals that live a long time. It's not something that's disposable. It's not something just to get the next best thing. Move that animal out and bring it in. If you're doing that, I personally don't agree, but you do you and you do what makes your business run. I don't want my business to be built on that foundation. That brings us to number 4, which is underestimating the effort. Now, I don't have a snake in my hands because if you look around me, this is a lot of work. This is not a 9 to 5. This is a passion and this is a lifestyle. This isn't something where if I get sick on the weekend, I can just say, I don't feel like cleaning those cages. If I don't feel like mowing my lawn, I don't need to do it. So it gets a little bit long. Who cares? If I don't feel like giving these animals water or cleaning the poop out of their cages, they can't do anything about it. We have them, they're confined to us, and I need to make sure that I'm taking the best care possible. If I'm not up to it, I have to be up to it. It's really hard to stay at that level all the time if it's not built on passion. Mistake number 5 is backing yourself into a genetic corner. And what I mean by that is that you don't put in the time to do the research and thoroughly understand how these things will interact with each other. So you just go on this buying spree and you buy what you think you need, and you buy what you like, and you have the passion, but you don't do the research. You never put in the effort to really understand the genetics. And then 2 years down the line or 2 weeks down the line after you buy things, you realize that, oh, I can't breed those two together. The breeder who I bought them from lied to me because they wanted to make the sale. These two guys are going wild, and this one's trying to bite me. But why I picked these two is these are 2 of my holdbacks. Now, I have a lot of snakes and a lot of different things I can plug them into. They are Hypo-Inca jungles that are 100% het VPI. Now, I can't do jungle to jungle. So if I bought these 2 as a breeding pair, I would find out later after doing my research that I can't breed these 2 together. So do your research, and you need to put in the effort, not only in cleaning and caring, but in thoroughly understanding what you can breed and where you can make and understanding the genetics of these. The other element of backing yourself into the genetic corner is you are buying pairs that are specific for each other. So I did this a lot when I was early breeding career, as I decided I had this whole list and I had this table of males and table of females, and I plugged in every gap so it all fit perfectly. And then what happens is one of my males dies. I don't know what happened, but he just died. And I said, man, there's nowhere else I can do this, and I'm totally out of a project. I see a lot of people do this with locale animals. So they might buy, let's say, a pair of Surnames, but then they finally get their pair up to breeding size and one of them dies. Well, you just raised that animal for 4 to 6 years and now you can't breed it. So anytime I buy projects, whether it be for morphs more specifically, is I'll make sure there's interchangeable components of these things so that if something happens for some reason to any of my animals, it's an easy swap, as I can, these are all het blood. Great, well, I can take this het blood, put it with that het blood. Maybe this male doesn't want to breed, and I can put this male in with it instead. Maybe this female doesn't have follicles ready, so I can use this female instead. Everything should be interchangeable. Now, it doesn't need to be everything, but the more interchangeable and malleable you are with your breeding plans, the better it's going to be overall in the long run for you. As this applies to locales or new species, anytime I buy a locale or a new species, for instance, my Brazilian rainbow boas, I had Brazilian rainbow boas years ago, but when I got back into them, I made sure I bought at least a 3.3, 3 males, 3 females, and I actually ended up buying a 4.4, 4 males, 4 females. A lot of people get very excited and they're working on a limited budget, and they'll only buy 1 male and 1 female, but then they raise those animals and they're totally out of a project. So I always recommend, anytime you're starting a new project, new locales, if you're really serious about breeding and that is your end game, or that's a large component of your end game, you need to make sure you're always giving yourself a backup plan. This way, if 4 years down the line, for some reason, my male or my female doesn't thrive, I still have a backup plan. I still have a project. So at a minimum, my rule is if I'm getting into a new project, I will always buy at least a 2.2, ideally a 3.3 or more if my budget allows for it. If it doesn't allow for a 2.2, or I cannot get a 2.2 because it's a limited species, I won't buy it. I promised you a bonus tip, and I'm going to say this bonus tip is probably number one, if not up there, as you're a newer breeder. Let's say all 5 of these have checked a box and you're saying, hey, I got this. I'm on the same page as you. I didn't make any of these rookie mistakes. Well, the one where I see most of these people make is they neglect the marketing and branding. It is the most critical part about what we do, is interacting with the people in the community. This is a reptile hobby and it's something you can do isolated on your own. But if you're a breeder, you better get used to being out there in public, because the buying, the raising, the keeping, the researching, the breeding, the making the babies is the easy part. The hard part is getting people to buy from you. Why should they buy from you over me, or me over somebody else? You need to let them know who you are. And that's where I see most people fail. Typically, they'll go through a whole cycle where they'll buy, they'll raise, they'll be all excited, they'll get babies, then they start the marketing. And that's too late. You need to start your marketing sooner. You need to start that branding sooner. They need to understand that you're this person and this is somebody I may want to buy from. Not everybody wants to buy from me. That's fine. That's cool. We have a huge market. A lot of people use excuses for why they can't sell their babies. And in reality, it's their neglect to market and brand. They'll say it's the economy. Oh, the buyers weren't at this reptile show. It was this or it was that. Well, you know what? People are buying things. I promise you that. Even in 2025, people are buying. The economy is bad, but people are still buying reptiles. They're still buying clothes, sneakers, cars. They're buying what they want. It's just a matter of how do you get in front of them over someone like me. And the only way to do that is to start small, be consistent, and consistently work on your brand and marketing before you need it. And that's where people go wrong, is it's always an afterthought, if they even do it at all. They just expect the babies to sell, and they end up getting out of the hobby because they can't sell their babies, and this wasn't the business that they thought it was. Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments, and until next video, let's keep it moving.